Without doubt, under Christmas trees across Greater Manchester this year, there will have been video games. Perhaps new games for existing consoles, or perhaps new consoles or upgraded consoles. This industry is worth an absolute fortune worldwide. It's bigger in terms of its financial worth than the film industry and the music industry. Yeah, you think pop music's big. Video gaming is bigger. But what are your kids looking at? Many of the games have 18 certificates, which means, you'd imagine they've got bad language in them, there's violence in them, there are some things in some games that some people are very upset about what kids are being asked to do. But why are they so popular, and need you be worried? Simon Lumb is a video games expert. He works here at the BBC in Salford, and he's sitting opposite me. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for coming in, by the way.
You're
How
welcome.
big is it financially? What is it worth, the video games industry?
So, in the UK, it's worth about £2.2 billion a year, which is pretty massive, and the figures aren't in for 2014 yet, but we spent £3.48 billion on games in 2013, so that's only set to rise.
I think worldwide it's worth something just a huge, like 60 billion or so.
Yeah,
It's just huge. When I say new games, I mean, I come from the days when you bought a cartridge and plugged it in. Those days are gone now, aren't they? Don't you download new games to your console, or can you still buy the cartridges as well?
So you can buy cartridges for the handheld consoles, so there's things like the PlayStation Vita and the Nintendo 3DS, and you can also, there's discs, there's download, there's the app stores on all of the handheld and kind of mobile phone devices out there. There's a lot of ways to get access to games. It's increasingly digital, increasingly online. I think last year was the first year where it was kind of half and half between people playing online or buying packaged goods, so it's on its way to being all digital.
That's the other thing. There used to be, when you wanted to play a video game, you plugged in your console to the telly and you played a video game. Now you can pick up your smartphone and play a video game, or your tablet, or you can get it all over the place, can't you?
Absolutely.
Are there gamers who are, shall we say, more mature? I mean, is it a young person's market, or are there, because Silver Surfers have cottoned onto the internet, they all love it, they use Skype, they're talking to grandchildren in Australia and getting it. Are they gaming as well, Simon, or not?
They are, but they wouldn't call themselves gamers, and I think that's the key distinction. I think gamers as a word, there's a culture around it, so people attach to it, and it's generally a tribal thing. It feels very kind of young, it's something to attach to, but people playing with things has always been there. We were joking just before that one of the most popular games in the world for many years was Solitaire on the work PC in between meetings. These people who are just using their downtime to participate in puzzles that challenge their mind, or to experiment with how systems work. It's just kind of a fundamental human thing to play with things, and games have just kind of evolved out of that. They're challenges. They're just interactive challenges that can bring great benefits to keeping your mind active. And so I know, for example, over Christmas my mother-in-law plays endless hours on Facebook on her Nintendo 3DS, your big giant XL thing, and every now and again she gets stuck on a bit, she'd pass it to me, and then she'd take it back off me to show me how to do it, which was embarrassing, but she is genuinely better than me at some of those games. Which is
how old is your mother-in-law? Just I don't want to embarrass her, but what sort of age is she?
She's in her 60s.
In her 60s, and comfortable with the equipment and comfortable gaming. So it's not all about teenagers sitting in front of screens in dark rooms all day long, is it?
No, I think that's kind of one of those things that's been there as a cliche for a long time, because when video games first became a thing, the UK has a huge and storied history in gaming. In fact, Manchester and Liverpool and the north of the country, like Silicon Canal it was called for a long time, is where a lot of games grew up. Huge software houses like Ocean Software, which were based in Manchester, and obviously Sony and Psygnosis and great names like that are out in Liverpool, and there's still games companies here still producing huge amounts of games for a worldwide market that's not just the consoles, but all of the tablets. And I think that back when you could buy a kit computer and put it together and then you could start to make it do things, I think there's a lot of people who will remember lessons at school, the legacy of the BBC and the BBC Micro. And
those cassette players
absolutely.
That wouldn't load endlessly.
I mean, imagine the frustration explaining that to to kids now, where you had I remember you used to have to go on the Spectrum, go and start a game loading. We'd come downstairs, we'd watch half of Star Wars, and then we'd go back upstairs and hopefully be able to play.
And it might not have loaded.
Yeah,
it might not have loaded. You were talking about how it's good to keep your mind active and it can keep you sharp. And I could hear people shouting at the radio, "How does gunning people down or behaving like some kind of car thief in some of these games? How does that keep your mind active?" That's surely a negative thing.
I think it's a massive entertainment medium, and across the spectrum of entertainment, there are more than just those games. Those games are the big blockbusters, so your things like Grand Theft Auto and your Call of Duty, they're like your Taken 3, they'll be in the cinemas, the buses that went by this morning, Liam Neeson there with a big gun on the front, and that's another entertainment medium. You could ask, why are we so fascinated with those kind of, the violence in those media? But it doesn't stop you seeing things like The Theory of Everything, this wonderful story of Stephen Hawking, and they're kind of side by side. You'd say, well, that's a spectrum of entertainment there in the movie industry. And the same is with games, from Tory MPs in the Commons playing Candy Crush during
famously,
in parliamentary meetings, which is, a simple pattern matching game.
My kids loved it.
Yeah.
They've moved on very quickly, but for a while it was, and Mrs. Crane as well, obsessed with this thing, just about getting dots in lines. I mean, I remember columns on the Sony handheld from a lot of time ago.
It hasn't changed.
So I accept that there is a spectrum of entertainment. I accept that these things are age appropriate. How policed are they? Because you imagine that a 14-year-old boy could go online and could get access to games that are quite rightly certified for 18 and over. Can it be bypassed, Simon, or can people be confident listening that grandsons or granddaughters or sons and daughters are safe online? And there's lots of other things about that, but in terms of gaming, can they get stuff they shouldn't be able to? Is it easy?
I think, it's one of those things where at the point of sale, the games are, they have age ratings. The PEGI, the Pan-European Games Institute, has a very, very detailed set of guidelines about what games might contain and give an age rating alongside that. If you're going to a store to buy it, then the clerks at the store will ask for ID and should certainly look after that at the point of sale. You need a credit card to purchase anything over the age of 18 online, and so on and so forth. So there are protections in place, but as with anything, creative ways to circumvent that are likely out there, and I think it's the responsibility of anyone who's worried about what their children or kind of might be getting exposed to just take an interest in it, ask them about it, see what they're doing and seeing why they're interested in these things. Take time to learn about it. There's resources from people like the UK Interactive Entertainment Board, UKI, trade body. They produce a website called Ask About Games, which is askaboutgames.com, which provides parents and families information on how to understand what games are out there, who they're suitable for, how to get them set up. I mean, I think really the challenge this Christmas is not necessarily going to be have they got access to a violent game, but it's actually, how do I get this thing set up? Why isn't this portal working with this device that I paid for? Where are the batteries?
Why have the major preempt providers been hacked into by the Lizard Squad? No, whatever it was.
And that's that episode on Christmas Day was an interesting one, because it was a denial of service. So imagine everybody in Manchester phoned you right now, you wouldn't be able to answer all those calls, and kind of that stopped and took a lot of joy out of Christmas for people who were kind of just opening these devices for the first time. And the manufacturers have got some responsibility, but there's not a lot you can do.
Fair enough. That's an interesting website though. Is it askaboutgames.com, did you say? Askaboutgames.com. Many people will be interested in that one, because that's a sensible thing actually. If you're worried about what they're doing, find out what they're doing and make sure, either reassure yourself it's okay, or then you can do something about it.
And I think you can, these games are all available, video games, videos, YouTube, that kind of thing, video websites. People, it's very popular to produce a video of yourself playing a game, and actually people review them and talk through them.
Wow.
It's interesting that the second most popular genre of video on YouTube is gaming, behind music.
Of course, yeah. So, people like to see, here's a cheat for this, here's me completing this, here's me completing that.
Absolutely.
It's a fascinating world, Simon. Thank you for an insight into it. Appreciate it. Video games expert, gamer, Simon Lumb, who works at the BBC here in Salford with his assessment. That's, I think, one thing to take away from that is that website, all the W's, askaboutgames.com. Have a look at that. BBC